Welcome to Elemental Fun, a historical and cultural look of the elements of the periodic table. Hello and welcome to a special edition of Elemental Fun. My name is Grace.
My name is Cindy.
And we're going to talk a bit, since it's Halloween, about two elements that are very poisonous, arsenic and thallium.
Yes. So it's a spooky edition of poison and nastiness.
Lots of death. Yes. Which
Not
is
to be
what
too hard, but you know.
It's not all I think about during Halloween is death and dying.
Poisons and toxins.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the two ones that we're going to be talking about?
Thallium and arsenic. And although cyanide is not an element, I do have a little bit about cyanide, and we could just talk a little bit about it.
We'll just add a little flavor.
Yeah. It was in my element book, and I was like, wait, is cyanide? Cyanide's not an element. Nope.
Yeah, why is it in the element book then?
It's a really good question because it talks about poisonous elements, and then there's a little spot about cyanide, and I was like, huh? And then I was like, I don't think it's an element. And then I looked it up, and it's not, but it's talked about. And I think people confuse it for an element a lot.
Yeah, I could see that.
So, so we're going to start with thallium.
Yeah, I think we start with that one because that's the one I don't think anybody knows because it's not a well-known element. I didn't really know about it.
I did not know about it until I, did this. Until I did the research for this.
I had a reason to look for it. Yeah, and I think most people, know arsenic, and there's a lot to arsenic as well. So we'll start with thallium. So thallium is an odorless and tasteless, soft silvery white metal that tarnishes easily. And it's so soft that you can actually cut it with a knife.
Ooh, butter.
Yeah. Now but don't eat it.
Don't eat it.
It's really
less than a teaspoon can kill you. So
right. So let's ixnay on the butter A. Or utterby, I guess it is. So let's get my pig Latin right.
Seriously, Cindy, focus.
What's wrong with me? So in the history of it, or the who discovered it, is there's a little bit of controversy with that. In 1861, William Crookes discovered it because he saw that there was a green line in the spectrum of some impure sulfuric acid. So he saw this little green line, and so he announced that there was something there, but he didn't actually isolate the actual metal.
Right. And real quick, the name thallium comes from thallos, which is Greek for green shoot or twig, which goes with the whole spectrum thing.
Exactly. So he really, discovered that there was something there. But in 1862, so a year later, Claude Auguste Lemay of Lille, France, he actually researched it and made an ingot of it. And the French Academy gave him the discovery, he discovered it. Well, so they gave him a medal at this thing, and William Crookes was a bit furious.
I wrote he threw a hissy fit. That's what I wrote.
So so they gave him a medal too. So, I mean, I kind of understand where he's coming from because he was the first one to say hey, we should even look into this. But at the same time, you didn't actually isolate the actual metal, so it's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough. But what does thallium used for? Because I didn't know. Basically, as a poison toxin. Thallium sulfate is used as a rodent killer, and I think also in a household rodent killer. But now it's prohibited since 1972 because they're like, wow, that's super toxic and bad.
Yeah, it says now it's banned from being used in the environment in like many, many, many countries.
Yeah. The most places that it's used is by electronics in photoelectric cells because the thallium oxide, so thallium with oxygen, you can create a special glass with a high index of refraction and a low melting point glass. So because of that, they use it in these electronics and stuff in those photoelectronic cells. I guess it's good for that.
Yeah. I also found that a form of thallium 201. Did you read about thallium
I
201?
did not. That's an isotope of thallium. I did
Yeah,
not.
it's an isotope. It's used in medicine to identify where blood isn't pumping in like the heart,
Ooh.
and where it's suspected that a coronary artery disease may be, and it's considered safe. It's deemed safe because its half-life is only 72.5 hours.
I was just
And
about
so,
to ask about is it the half-life, because that's
yes.
either with this one or maybe arsenic too. I don't know, something else. I guess we were looking at if the half-life is so short, then it goes out of your body and it's fine.
Yeah, it can't really cause that much damage
Right.
by the time it goes through. So that was the only thing I put down for like
Good
how
things.
it's used, because I have a lot of fun facts for thallium.
Yeah, so they use thallium salts for used to treat skin diseases, but limited due to its toxicity. So there's that. And then their alloy with mercury, that has 8% thallium, has a melting point at 20 degrees lower than mercury. So they use them in low temperature thermometers so that it can be
Okay,
cold.
but that just sounds like a really toxic thermometer versus a
Right, because
slightly
mercury's already
bad.
bad and you add thallium to it. Over toxic.
This isn't deadly
Break
enough.
it.
Let me just throw in some thallium. There we go.
Exactly. They usually use it in photoresistors and infrared optical equipment and things like that. But as we were talking about the toxicity, it's very toxic, and there's evidence that the vapor is teratogenic, and so teratogenic means that it disturbs the development of an embryo or fetus.
Ah.
And actually, so I was listening to This Podcast Will Kill You. If you haven't listened to that podcast, it's really awesome. It talks all about diseases and parasites and bad things. But you learn all about it. And they were going over teratogenic, and teratogenic has its basic, the root of the word means monster.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is kind of like, wow, you're calling people like you're creating monsters rather than just, bad things are happening to your DNA. But it kind of goes to like, back in that day when how they would describe something.
Right.
So some major bad things can happen when the development of the embryo or fetus is involved. It's also carcinogenic. So
yes.
Causes cancer. So really not good. Oh, and this is really interesting. It can displace potassium in the body and affect the central nervous system.
Ooh.
So the sodium potassium pump is what is how your muscles work, basically. The processing of those ions across the membrane gives you the muscle twitches and stuff like that. So if it's replacing potassium, it's gonna mess that up, and so you'd have trouble getting that information to your muscles to do things.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's bad.
How bad is it?
It's really bad. It's found in nature. It's found in several ores and minerals, in crooksite, laurinidite, hutchinosite, different things, and pyrites that are used to produce sulfuric acid. So again, that's why I found it.
Do you know there's also nodules of thallium that can be found on the ocean floor?
Yes, they are found in manganese nodules in the ocean floor.
Which is, remember, we talked about manganese nodules on the floor, but these ones can be from the size of a potato to the size of a cabbage, I read.
Okay, yeah, not as big as the other manganese.
No, manganese got big.
Huge.
If you want to learn more about manganese,
check out
our podcast about manganese.
So I thought that was really cool. But it's mainly gotten from the byproduct of zinc, copper, and lead refining. So it kind of is left over from that. And actually, to go with your isotopes from before, they're naturally occurring. Thallium is a mix of two isotopes usually, but there are 25 different isotopes, which is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I have about the basics of thallium. I'm hoping you have some more exciting things because I did not find very much on the basics of the history.
Oh, do I?
Okay.
Oh, I have some fun stuff.
Let's get into the murder mystery.
Oh, yes. Do you know a certain author named Agatha Christie?
I do, and I love Agatha Christie, and Poirot is my favorite one of hers. I like him versus, is it Mabel?
I'm not sure.
She has a girl detective and a boy detective. I like the Poirot mysteries.
Well, this one, so Agatha Christie, they think like, why does she know so much about poisons and why does she know so much about, murder? Well, she worked in a hospital and a pharmacy, which could explain why so many of her mysteries have poisonings in them. But in her 1961 thriller, The Pale Horse, the poison used was thallium.
Ooh.
So it's known as the poisoner's poison because the salts are soluble in water, they're colorless, odorless, and tasteless, and it has a delayed effect on the victim. Probably it attacks the nervous system, like you were talking about. Now, they think Christie could have based her thriller on the 1957 KGB attempt to murder Nikolai Okay.
Got it. Nick? Just call him Nick.
Yeah. He was a former KGB assassin himself, and then he joined the U.S. and then they attempted to poison him with thallium. But they said attempted, so obviously it did not work. But Christie's details from The Pale Horse, which like I read a quote from it because they're like, is her hair falling out? And they're like, yes. They're like, quick, get her to a hospital. She's had thallium. She's been poisoned, and saved someone's life. I don't know who, but the details from her book have thought to have saved at least 2 lives and led to the arrest and conviction of a factory worker who used it to kill his stepmother, 2 colleagues, and nauseate 70 others. But spoiler, he gave himself away. So people are like, what is happening to these people? Are they getting sick? And like, could it be like a poisoning? And then the health department guy's like, nah, it's not a poisoning. And the guy who was doing the poisoning was like, well, could it be thallium? Because there's, Agatha Christie's novel, it said they reacted this way. And they were like, huh. And then they realized it was him. He had actually just gotten out of an insane asylum and he was pretty cuckoo cuckoo. And he murdered a bunch. He would have murdered a lot more people if he wouldn't have given himself away by quoting Agatha Christie.
A lot of times people like that want to get caught. So it's like they put the breadcrumbs out there so that somebody will catch them.
Right. Well, he obviously was not quite right in the head because he, he was doing pretty well until he gave himself away because they were trying to find like an alternative because it was all these factory workers and they're like, well, what's making these factory workers sick? And it's the crazy guy they hired.
Background check.
Spoiler.
That's
another.
That's crazy that Agatha Christie's book like helped save people. That's neat.
Yeah, because it's very detailed. Like the end of the book, because he's like, does the victim have these symptoms? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, he's like, it's thallium poisoning. So he like straight up says it. Another fun story. I think you'll really enjoy this. So in 1959, Fidel Castro took over power of Cuba. Right? Ever heard of him? Kind of.
But yeah, the guy.
Yeah. So this just cracks me up. The CIA believed that if he lost his famous beard, he would lose his power over Cuba.
Oh my God, what is this? Oh my Lord.
So, so they plan to dose his socks with thallium and hopes thallium talcum powder to hope that his hair would fall out. It
Wow.
failed. It did not work.
What? Yeah. But what is this? This is Samson and Delilah, right? He cut his hair and he lost all his
Strength. Yeah.
right? It's like, okay. It must
So,
be a powerful beard, man, if they think that's what they could do.
right? I read that story and I was like, what? That
That's
doesn't quite make sense.
like, and you gotta wonder, somebody brings that up in like the briefing room or something, and everybody's like,
guys.
yeah, that's a great idea.
Well, it might, I mean, part of it might have just been like they didn't think that, but they thought maybe people of Cuba.
People think it, right?
Yeah. So, like, we won't kill him. We'll just poison him until his hair falls out. And then people will think he's weak and then he'll lose his control. So, let's put thallium talcum powder in his socks. That sounds like a good plan.
Oh, my Lord.
Oh. Tie back to polonium. They originally thought that the former spy that was murdered with polonium poisoning, they thought it was with thallium at first. So that was like the first thing they thought. And I have just one more really silly fact. There is a perfume for men called thallium.
Okay. Did they name it after that, or did they just name it that and then realize that it's also that and it didn't matter? Like, but
you will have to ask Jacques Evard
ew.
why he named his men's perfume thallium. Maybe it's so good it's deadly.
Oh, I like it. That should be the tagline. You should go work for them.
I should. I really should. My creativity is wasted. Wasted on second graders who don't get my jokes.
Because that's a good one.
Literally, though, I'm virtual teaching and I'm like, did anyone get my joke?
Anybody?
Is anyone there?
Anyone?
And then I'm like, is my mic on? No, really, is my mic on? Crickets.
My son's second grade teacher will do jokes in the morning, and then so you'll hear and she'll tell a joke, and like you can't hear the kid. You know, the kids are all muted, and so it's like, okay, well maybe it's not that funny.
Well, that's the thing is like you tell a joke and it's like, unless the kid's like throwing their head back to guffaw, you don't know if they think it's funny, and you're just in there like, okay, well. And then there'll be like the one kid that like unmutes and goes, huh.
It's just so hard to gauge your audience over Zoom.
It really is. It really is. Anyway, so that's all we have about thallium.
Yeah, thallium. It's kind of a lesser known one, but we got lots on arsenic.
Oh, yes.
People know about arsenic.
I didn't go too crazy into arsenic.
Well, there's more about the history and the biology.
Okay. So I have that it was isolated in 1250.
Yes.
By German Dominican friar and alchemist.
I have a German philosopher, Albertus Magnus.
Oh.
Did you have somebody else?
He didn't put a name. I don't know why I don't have a name.
No, that's
the same person.
Yeah, probably. It is also odorless and tasteless.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a well-known poison. So actually, and this is, I have to look at my notes again. So originally I saw that it was from the word arsenican, which is Greek for the yellow pigment oripint, and oripint is arsenic's sulfide. But then it also said that the first word of it was from the Persian zarnik, Zarnikh, and that means yellow or oripint pigment. And then the Greek adapted it to arsenican. I
read this, what you said the second. I read that it's from the Persian word for yellow pigment, now known as orpiment. Orpiment. I can't read my handwriting. And then the Greek kind of manipulated it and translated it. But it also, the Greek word could also mean masculine or potent.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting too. I was like, oh, well.
Masculinity will kill you.
It's
Toxic masculinity.
ah,
Oh,
that's
oh,
it. I didn't even catch
oh.
that. Yep.
That's so smart. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Toxic masculinity.
Oh
Arsenic.
my gosh. That guy is so arsenic.
Seriously. Oh, we just did a whole new hashtag arsenic.
Oh my gosh. This is
Uh,
exciting.
yes, it
No,
is.
no one will care but us, but that's okay.
Right. All it takes is one person to catch on, and then it'll go
Right.
like wildfire.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's interesting though that it's a poison, and then that word also means masculine or potent, so that that's strong, that's very strength and strong, and things kind of go together, which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, what I find interesting is that although it was isolated in 1250, it's been known by the ancient Egyptians, ancient Greeks, the Chinese, the Ming Dynasty. It was really popular.
Oh, yep. I
In
heard. I
that
just have
time.
to think about that. Yep.
So it's. I mean,
It's been well known.
It's been
for a long
around.
time. Yeah. It just wasn't isolated. Like you just like, oh, that thing over there, or that pigment, that orpiment.
Don't lick that rock, you will die.
Right. Things.
But they say yellow, but there's yellow arsenic and there's gray arsenic and there's white arsenic.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting.
Those are all allotropes, so those different shades and shapes of it in nature. And as a metal, it's actually a semi-metal, and it's actually silver gray and brittle.
Yeah, it's a metalloid, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like in between. But what's interesting too is that the poison one, and we'll get into it as we go through some of the stuff, but the poisonous part is when it's in its inorganic form. So the arsenic with sulfur, arsenic with oxygen, arsenic with chloride.
So when it makes a friend, it has toxic masculinity.
But it has to be inorganic. If it goes with carbon, then it becomes an organo arsenic, and that's not as bad. And can actually be helpful. So it all depends on who you're friends with.
Brings out the bad toxic masculinity in you.
Exactly. Those other inorganic ones.
It's not natural.
Nope. Not natural. It's not good.
Nope.
So uses, as with thallium, rat poisons. Basically, it's toxic. Rat poisons, insecticides, but of course now it's strictly controlled, especially in the U.S. Since the 1980s. But what's crazy is that there's some still in the soil from the large time that they've used it from the 1980s. So that's why if you're to be an organic farmer, they test your soil, and it takes years and years and years for some of that stuff to go out. So sometimes you have to wait like 7 years to be able to know that if your soil's okay, or more than that.
Isn't arsenic though like found like in even organic soil? Isn't it like? I mean, isn't it just naturally occurring in organic soil? The less toxic.
You do find it. Let me see where I have my nature. It's crystalline. It's a crystalline metalloid in the Earth's crust, but then there's a small amount in the native state, mainly in minerals, or arsenopyrite and others. But I don't actually have about it being in soil. There might be some.
Okay.
But
I just thought it showed up a lot in rice because it came in from the soil, but
right, but that doesn't mean it's naturally occurring in the soil.
Oh, right, true. Valid point.
Yeah. So they used to be used as a medicine.
Oh boy, do I know that.
In the Victorian age, back then. In 1786, Thomas Fowler had Dr. Fowler's solution, which is a potassium arsenate.
It was a cure-all.
In water, yeah, it cured everything. It was a cure-all tonic. Charles Dickens used it.
I know.
But then, which is very interesting. 1786 is when it started, right? They didn't start to phase it out until the 1930s and 50s.
Oh, that's a long time.
Right, because they saw this increased cancer happening.
Oh.
And they're like, oh, maybe that's not so good. Okay. Yeah, I mean, sure, it probably killed a lot of things, but also damaged you in the process. Killed
all the bad and some of the good.
And some of the good. There you go. I just think it's funny that it took that long for them to make those connections, but I digress. But so the organic arsenics, the arsenic with carbon, those compounds, it can be added to poultry feed that actually help prevent disease and improve waking. So again, if it's an organic form, can actually possibly be beneficial.
Can improve what?
Prevent disease and improve weight gain, because you want some fat chickens.
Weight gain. I heard waking, and I'm like, are they sleepy chickens? I'm confused.
It helps them wake up in the morning to get their egg laying going.
Did you read that it used to be used in fly paper?
No, I didn't get that.
Yeah, so it used to be used in fly paper. Basically, those sticky like fly paper that would be hanging. Well, they would just, paint some arsenic on there so that the flies would die faster.
Well, they're not wrong. Just don't touch it yourself.
Right. Just like, what?
Oh, my Lord.
Okay. We've been so dumb. I don't know how people are still...
so many things we've been done with. And especially we know it's a poison. It's okay. It won't hurt us. It's fine.
We'll just kill everything around us with it, and it won't affect us at all.
Here, baby, go play with this fly tape. It'll be fine. So this is interesting, and I didn't actually research what this meant, but gallium arsenide is used as a doping agent in semiconductors for solid state devices.
That's
and I have
dope.
no idea what doping agent means in this context.
It means it's awesome.
It's super awesome. Well, I mean, solid state devices are that's the next generation of computery stuff that you don't have a spinning disk, right? It's just solid, doesn't move around. But I have no idea what doping agent means in that respect.
I have no idea.
I even have a little question mark over it, and I didn't have time to go research what that is.
That's okay. I mean, if someone really wants to know, they will go find out.
Exactly. They used it in it's used in bronzing and pyrotechnics for color, so adding change color of your fireworks. And for hardening shot, so bullets to create to make it harder, the bullets.
To really kill whatever you're shooting.
Uber kill. So the bullet wasn't hard enough, let's make it even harder.
And poisoned.
And poisoned. Exactly. Imagine if depending on how much arsenic is in there, then if it stays in you, then you could get, if it's made out of lead poisoning, but then you could also get arsenic poisoning, I suppose. Does it leak?
Yeah, back in I mean they didn't usually kill people with like a hard metalloid version of arsenic. They wasn't usually how they usually did it poison through like liquids and food, so it's not
right.
But I guess it could in theory.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying if you got shot by one and then you couldn't get the bullet out, and sometimes the bullet's left in, and then you get adverse effects from that.
Definitely.
Also use it to make special glass and preserve wood, but of course they don't do the special glass as much anymore since it's toxic. And the treated wood was used to prevent rotting, but it's not banned, I think this is interesting. It's not banned. You can still do it, but the manufacturers voluntarily stopped producing them in 2003.
Oh, good for them.
I know, which is not something you normally hear. You don't hear like, we're going to do this out of the goodness of our heart, and we're not going to do it, even if we're told not. We're not told that we have to. So I thought that was nice.
Well, did you know? There was an arsenic-based drug called Salvarsan. Yeah, Salvarsan.
That was my next one.
It was developed in 1910 by Nobel laureate Paul. Oh no.
Ehrlich.
Ehrlich. Oh, I can't remember.
He's German.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's supposed to be an H, not an N. Okay. To treat syphilis.
Yep. It's called arsphenamine.
It's almost as bad as thallium for men.
Right. What's interesting is that it was treated cure syphilis and is very effective. And it was the top medicine until penicillin came about in the 1940s.
Penicillin's a little safer than arsenic, but yeah.
But did you read that that drug led to the targeted chemotherapy that is used.
No.
Yeah, so they actually use arsenic trioxide that treats acute promyelocytic leukemia.
All right.
But they're able. It led to them using it as a chemotherapy drug, which I thought was kind of cool. Yeah, and then the only other thing I had for the uses is that back to the bullets, they alloy it with lead to make the bullets harder and more durable. So you can get lead poisoning and arsenic poisoning together in one.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
So,
as you're being shot.
Right. Exactly. It's great. Let's see. I've got biology and I've got some history and some health. What do we want to do? What do you got? What do you want to do?
I've got poison. I've got poison. I've got
poison.
Slow poisoning. I have first case of toxicology.
Ooh.
Well, in a murder case.
Let's go through the biology, and then I have that history, and then we'll go into your stuff, and then I'll do any of the health that you haven't covered.
All right.
So biology, so interesting. Some scientists think that arsenic may be essential in our diet at super low doses, right. Like 0.0000 something. Because even small doses, it's toxic and a suspected carcinogen.
Right.
So it's interesting. I mean, we talk about trace elements. You do have to have some things in very small doses, but this would be super duper slow. Small. This is one that you can test your hair to see if you've been exposed to it.
Right. No, that's actually how they that's how they do a quick diagnosis. You just need a lock of hair.
Right. You can see if you've been dosed with it. Because it bonds the atoms in the hair.
But back in the big arsenic poisoning days, back before they, could take a hair sample and actually, test it, it was diagnosed by the victim's garlicky smelling breath.
You smell like garlic when you have too much arsenic?
Apparently, when you die of arsenic, your breath, or as you're dying, it has a garlicky. But ironically, researchers in India showed that eating cloves of garlic, 1 to 3 cloves of garlic a day, could prevent arsenic poisoning in contaminated water, like the drinking water form of arsenic that's done from wells. So in India, they're doing there's a lot of arsenic poisoning, right? Because they dig these deep wells, but there's mines nearby, and arsenic has come out of the ores and into the drinking water. So it's really low dosages. It's very small doses, and I think it's a different kind of arsenic. It might be the organic kind of arsenic.
Well, I think the organic one isn't really toxic.
Well, it was saying that it's a long-term poisoning. It takes a long time to kill you.
Well, that's anything with a low dose, long exposure type thing.
Right. So, but researchers in India were showing that eating cloves of garlic can actually prevent arsenic poisoning of contaminated water. That's I don't know all the science behind it, but I have my source.
It smells like garlic, but then eating garlic can stop it from happening. That's so weird.
Maybe it's like birth control. If you have it already in your body, then it doesn't need to make it. I don't know.
Or maybe it binds with the garlic binds or something. I don't know that the other one can't.
The arsenic's oh, there's already arsenic here. I'm gonna leave.
This is competitive exclusion. We'll fill it up with garlic, and there's no room for you, arsenic. Go home.
I don't know if it's proven. That's just what researchers were discovering.
You never know. I think there's crazier things out there.
Dude, just eat more garlic.
It's fine. But then what if you run out of garlic?
Then vampires are going to find you. And Halloween is complete now. So
yeah, I do have that the biggest risk is leaking into water supplies. That's around the world. And in 2001, actually, the EPA for the U.S. decreased the level allowed from 50 parts per billion to 10 parts per billion.
That's a big drop.
Yeah, it's a big drop, and that's super small, like parts per billion parts of water. So like 10, you can't
Wow.
less than 10. And as you noted, well water can have the highest levels. And this is interesting, 1 in 5 wells in New Hampshire, Maine, Michigan, California, New Mexico, Arkansas, Colorado, and Nevada have levels that are too high for being good. So be careful if you have well water. You should get that tested.
And the shallower the well, the less
Yeah.
likely that the arsenic was found in it. So that's part of it as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess the deeper there would be more. Deeper is just worse. You can do that. And actually, we'll talk. I don't know. We'll talk about that right now.
Crinkle,
But there
crinkle,
are
crinkle.
some foods have a surprisingly high amount of arsenic in them. But it is in the less harmful organic form. So again, you're right. The organic form can be harmful. It's just not nearly as bad as the inorganic form. But that does say it's not harmful to health. So it's not really going to affect you that badly. May not be great for you.
But tell me what food has.
So the foods. So this is interesting. Fruiting crops like tomatoes, peppers, squash, cucumbers, peas, beans, corn, melon, and strawberries absorb very little. So those are good.
Oh, okay.
Not low arsenic.
Oh, good. I like those.
Leafy vegetables, lettuce, collard greens, kale, mustard, and turnip greens store more in their leaves than others, but still not concerning. Still okay. The root vegetables, though, again, this goes to the soil being deeper. Root vegetables like beets, turnips, carrots, radishes, and potatoes, there can be quite a bit of it, but it's mainly in the skin. So if you peel the skins, you're getting rid of most of it.
But isn't that where like all the nutrients of the potato is in the skin?
So that's what I was thinking, because I don't peel my carrots because that's where a lot of the nutrients are. And now I'm like, well, crap. Should I be peeling my carrots now because of the arsenic?
But they said it's not concerning. It says
no. They said that for the leafy vegetables. They didn't say that for the root vegetables.
Oh.
Like that one that's the level that it may be.
But is it inorganic, or is it, because maybe this is just in soil that's not fully organic?
Yeah, I don't know. They didn't say. They just said in general. I think on average over all of the carrots in the U.S.
Yeah, that's a lot of carrots.
Yeah. So yeah, I was kind of sad. I was like, because I like leaving the skins on things because that's what
I know. I actually love eating a baked potato, and I love eating the whole potato.
I do too. Me too.
Oh,
I mean, I think also if you're not eating like 1,000 pounds of potatoes a day, you're probably okay.
That's true. If you have a potato skin at like once a month, you're not gonna, have arsenic poisoning.
It'll be okay. And then apples, pears, and grapes do absorb some, but that's why they're actually the FDA and stuff are actually keeping track of juices because some of them can have some in there. So that's about the food. So I didn't realize that arsenic was so
present.
Present, yeah, and actually prawns also have a fair amount of arsenic.
Yeah, I remember reading that somewhere too, and I was like, "Oh man, I like me some prawns."
Serious. And then
I don't eat them.
The last one that I have for food is what you talked about before, is the rice. Because rice absorbs more arsenic than other crops do. And so that's why the FDA has focused on rice cereals for kids, because there's under 100 parts per billion of inorganic arsenic. They wanted to stay under 100 parts per billion of inorganic arsenic in the rice cereals.
Yeah, I remember Shane read an article. My husband read an article about arsenic in rice after we had Greta, and he's like, okay, let's try not to give her too much rice. I'm like, every baby food is made of rice.
It's like, what are you gonna do?
And then I got her these like teething bars that were made of wheat, but they were like dog bones. It was awful. And then she would just drool on them, and they turned into this like gelatinous like mess. And I was just like, this is so gross. Can I get a mum now? Can I get a mum?
Well, so I love the mums. Man, Benjamin loved those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the point though is that the FDA is so on top of it because of that. So it is much more regulated than other things. So
Right.
there is it's not like, oh my God, this is a problem, you shouldn't eat it. It's we need to keep track of it, but the levels are low.
Right.
And it
That's
also
valid.
might be in beer, wine, and Brussels sprouts.
Well, I had some of that tonight, so I hope. I think I'm gonna die of a different kind of poisoning if I drink enough to get arsenic poisoning from it.
Right? You have to drink a lot to get there. So I'll go into a little bit of the past history, and then you can chime in, and then you can go on to the other things that you have in the interesting stuff. It is called the King of Poison or Poison of Kings.
Yes, it
I
is.
Very cool because it's tasteless, odorless, and
It's
I guess
killed so many It's killed so much royalty.
Well, so that's the thing. So they would use it to kill a lot of kings, a lot of royalty, and even peasants as well.
The Borgias were thought to use.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that in your notes?
I do. The Italy family would. They believe it was used to kill. They used it to kill to become the most powerful family in the Renaissance period.
Yes. If you don't know about the Borgias, they're a 15th century Italian family. The father was Pope Alexander VI, son of Caesar, and his daughter Lucretia. They lived in Florence, and they are said to have poisoned many of their enemies, primarily with arsenic. So,
yeah.
And I actually did a play where one of the characters went around and she went, "I feel like Lucretia Borgia," because she was poisoning people.
Nice.
So
Poison for you. Poison for you. Everybody gets poison.
Oh, it's actually a really, really, really funny short play that I just love it. It's called Any Body for Tea, and it's about these old women who they this like detective moved in across the street, and they're like kind of creeping on him, like looking at him through the like he's doing his calisthenics in the window, and they're all like, "Oh, he's so cute, I wish we could meet him." They're like, "Well, how can we meet him? We can't just invite him over, that's not proper." And so they're like, "Well, if he was a plumber, we could stop up the sink." And they're like, "Nah, he's a detective in homicide." So they start killing each other off so that he comes over for tea.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's so funny.
So dark and so funny.
It is. I acted in it, and I also later directed it because I loved it so much.
That's
it's a little one act play.
At the beginning of that, I was like, how is this relating to poisoning? I was not expecting
poisoned each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A play to go that route. Interesting.
Right.
I like it. What's that? Let's see. Oh yeah, kings. So kings and commoners use it as assassination. Some believe that Bonaparte was poisoned. They pretty much know he died of gastric cancer, but could that have been part of it?
There's more to this story.
Ooh,
so initially they thought Napoleon was poisoned by arsenic in his entourage. However, the place where he was living when he was dying, his wallpaper had Scheele's green, which exuded an arsenic vapor when it was damp. And this actually was considered to kill many people, including a U.S. ambassador in the 1950s. So there was this like wallpaper that was this Scheele's green color, which they got that green color by adding some yellow arsenic, and it wasn't toxic until it got damp. When it got damp, it released an arsenic vapor. So although Napoleon died of cancer, did he die of cancer that was due to the carcinogenic that was in the wallpaper in his walls?
What? And we thought lead paint was a problem.
Right. No, but there was a U.S. ambassador in the 1950s who was spending like time in Italy, and she got really sick and had to go back home, and they realized that where she was staying, the hotel she was staying in, had that Scheele's green or Scheele's green wallpaper. And then so the thing I was reading was like, how many how many nurseries and how many like
Right?
homes had this wallpaper in it, and the people died, and they're like, oh, how sad, that child was so sick and then
Yeah, so
just
that's the thing.
died.
This is probably the count of arsenic deaths is probably way higher than we've recorded, because you don't
Yeah,
associate all of those times that it was a part of it.
yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. I'm
Hmm.
glad I could add to that story for you.
Yes,
That
that's
makes me really
awesome.
happy.
Yeah, well, I was
Hmm.
like, well, I mean, like maybe like he was slowly getting arsenic somehow, and that led to the cancer, but that makes total sense.
Hmm.
Crazy. Wallpaper killing you.
Yeah, watch out, man. It's not only tacky, it's deadly.
Oh man, I love it. You got some great ones tonight.
Thank you.
Tacky and deadly. Oh man.
Toxic masculinity.
Tacky and deadly. Um so the we kind of already talked about it, but the fact that you mentioned before, the Egyptians knew about it. Greek philosopher Theophrastus knew of orpiment and realger, which are different. I forget what I wrote down what realger was, what thing it is, but I can't find it now. But the combination of arsenic with something else. And Aristotle noted sandarark, or red lead, which is actually arsenic sulfide.
Hmm.
So they'll know about it. And then, as you mentioned too, the Chinese in Pen Tsao's Kanmu writings in the 1500s, which is the Ming Dynasty,
Mm-hmm.
it was noted for the toxicity and mentioned in pesticide uses in the rice fields, actually.
Oh,
So
that's
that's
really
where
bad.
perhaps that's where some of the soil, the rice comes from, in soils that it's been used on for a long time.
Yeah.
Let's see. White arsenic is more dangerous, as if arsenic just by itself isn't dangerous enough. And it's arsenic trioxide is a byproduct of copper refining, and they mix it with olive oil and heat to get the arsenic metal. But that white arsenic was sold in stores and used as chalk makeup in the Victorian times to show, remember, like, so in the Victorian times, if you didn't work in the fields, like if you were fat and you were really pale, means you didn't work in the fields, so you were high up. Well, they were
Oh
painting their
no.
faces with white arsenic,
Oh boy.
which didn't, it's not good. Just letting you know.
Nah, no, not good. Not good.
When I realized, I was like, oh my god, seriously? So like, when I paint this on my face, it's gonna be so great. Yeah. So there's that. So they did that in the Victorian times.
Mm-hmm.
And then, do you know when the first anti-poison law was made?
No, I don't.
In the 82 BC. Yeah. The Roman Lucius Cornelius Sulla passed the first anti-poisoning law because there was a rash of arsenic poisonings.
He's like, okay, guys,
It's like,
okay.
seriously, we need to stop
You can
this.
kill each other other ways, but no more
Right?
poisoning.
This is not
Okay.
cool. And then also in 1836, the British chemist James Marsh devised a test that detected minuscule amounts of arsenic, and that's only then was the epidemic of arsenic poisonings started to decrease.
Because they could get caught a little faster.
Right. So people have been using this thing forever.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a fun little ditty for you.
Okay.
Let's see. Well, first there was a teenage poet named Thomas Chatterton. He was around in the 1770s, and he committed suicide with arsenic. Not my fun ditty. But then at Toul in the Limousin region of France, Marie Lafarge was tried and found guilty of poisoning her husband with arsenic in 1840. I'm reading straight from Periodic Tales,
Ah, the
Cindy's
book
favorite
our
book.
podcast is based on. I couldn't
that
agree.
we struggled to read, but there are some fun stories in it. You just have to dig. But Madame Lafarge was convicted when the evidence of the brilliant toxicologist Methuophila, called by a lawyer in her defense, but then he showed that there to be arsenic in her husband's exhumed body and in food residues. It was the first case in which forensic chemistry was used to secure a verdict.
Wow. And when was that?
1840.
Nice. So that's 4 years after the arsenic tests by that British guy.
Yeah.
Interesting. So it's been the first time that forensics was used is the first anti-poison law. So arsenic's been responsible for quite a few things.
You know, arsenic was a serious problem, and people had to start making some changes, just like with the toxic masculinity in our culture.
Right. Also needs to be changed. Oh, I like it.
Ban it. Okay, I'll stop with my toxic masculinity. And scene. Yeah, I thought that was cool. I mean, the first case in which forensic chemistry, which, like, when I was in high school, I know, Cindy, you were like, I don't know, 40 already by this point, but when I
so funny.
When I was in high school and CSI came out and forensics was like huge, you know, I took a forensics class, and we did like blood splatter and learned about serial killers and you know, like decomposition and things like that. But like, forensic chemistry has been around a lot longer than CSI, y'all. Just saying, we should CSI 1840s. Ooh.
You know what's really funny is that
where's that series?
That'd be awesome. My other podcast that I do for my marine mammal work, we just did a CSI episode, basically, but a crime scene investigation involving seals. Ooh. But it did not involve chemistry.
I do enjoy your podcast, by the way.
Oh, why? Thank you. It's the Pac-Man podcast.
Yes. Yeah, everyone, go listen.
If you like.
You learn about marine mammals. I've learned many things, mostly about different types of porpoises, which I had no clue there were so many kinds until. And I learned about pinnipeds.
Pinnipeds, featherfoot, sea lions.
I did not know that there was a pinniped that was freshwater and lived in a lake in Siberia. And I learned that the other day.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
What? That's just.
Anyways.
Do you have any more
shameless plug for you?
Shameless plug. We need more followers. We need more subscribers. Go.
Yeah.
Do you have any more of the interesting history stories? The only thing I have left is some health related things.
I have the very, very famous play that was turned into a movie starring Cary Grant, Arsenic and Old Lace.
Oh.
Have you never seen Arsenic and Old Lace?
An Old Lace?
Yes.
Arsenic and Old Lace.
Yes.
Okay. I don't understand the title.
Okay. I will explain.
Okay.
It was written in 1939 by Joseph Kesselring. Kesselring. It was by far his most famous play. Basically, the story plot goes that there are these two elderly sisters that live in this big house. They also live with their brother, who believes he's Theodore Roosevelt.
As you do.
Yes, of course. And basically, they have these single men stay in their house, like renting rooms, but then they see that they're lonely, so they just poison them and kill them because they think they're like doing them a favor.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't befriend them.
Well, they do. But see, they have tea and they listen to them, and they live such a sad life, and I just think they'd be better off in a better place. And so they poison them with arsenic. And so they wear old lace. They're old ladies, and they wear old lace. Okay. And their nephew comes by and is visiting them, and like kind of starts putting things together. And he's like, "What is happening?" Like, and yeah. So it's really funny. It's kind of, that's probably where the person who wrote Anybody for Tea probably just stole it from Arsenic and Old Lace. But it's a really funny play, and you can see the movie with Cary Grant. It's really, I mean, the brother thinks he's Theodore Roosevelt, and so every time he goes up the stairs, he goes, "Charge!" and he like charges up the stairs every time. And He's like, I'm digging the ditches in Panama. And he's like, they're dying of yellow fever down there. And like, he's just,
Out of
but they
thing.
just think he's, he's just their sweet brother. And he's
Entertaining.
just a little quirky. It's like, it's such a good movie. It's such a good play. And that's actually where I first heard of arsenic.
Oh.
Was in
The
the
arts.
play Arsenic and Old Lace. Because if you don't know this about me, I was a theater major.
Just a little bit.
And it's doing such great things for me.
It is.
It is. Basically, teaching is an acting job.
That is true.
It's a
Best
performance.
teachers are kind of good actors and actresses. Entertainment.
But yeah, you could do a little bit about health, and then
Yep,
we could just,
wrap it
I
up.
have a tiny bit about cyanide that we could just throw in there, sprinkle it on the end of our poison episode.
Excellent.
Mhm.
So the health stuff is just very brief, just basically about how it works. In large doses, you get immediately sick and die. So there's that. But the long-term exposure that we kind of already talked about, like those low doses, you see higher rates of skin, bladder, and lung cancers. And I'm not sure why exactly those cancers in particular. But I suppose that maybe from the vapor, the breathing it in.
I was gonna say maybe it's breathing it in,
and then
or
getting
it's
out.
drinking it, and or just absorbing it through your skin.
Yeah. So there's that. It can reduce your IQ and give you birth defects. So also not good. But the good news is that now probably a lot for that British guy in 1836 that came up with the better test, and it's gotten better from then on out. It's very easily detected and with very cheap tests, and can be filtered out with filtration. So it's, we don't really worry about it nowadays because we figured that out and it's very easy. So even if you do have arsenic waters in your well, you can easily get it tested, and then you can get filters and you're fine.
Right.
So that's the good news. Oh yeah, so I mentioned before that the thinking that some scientists think that in very, very, very small trace amounts, it's vital to our bodies. Yeah, it says that some toxic metals in trace amounts may be essential nutrients. The human body needs 0.00001% arsenic for healthy nervous system. Yeah.
How many zeros was that?
That was 4 zeros.
All right, just checking.
Yeah, and that's yeah. So
that's a very small percentage.
Very small percentage of what you need. So don't go out and get arsenic. You're getting plenty in whatever carrot peel you eat. So that's right. So eat some of your carrot peels. It's fine. You need some of it there.
Yeah, there you go.
I find it really interesting that something can be so super toxic, but in really small, super trace amounts can actually be beneficial. I thought that was very interesting.
Oh, come on. Think about our oxygen episode, right? Where you need it, but
too much of anything is bad.
Yes. Except for love.
Never have too much love. I have one thing to add at the end. I think would be a good closing thing. So let's talk about your cyanide for a little bit.
Oh, I just have a little bit. You probably heard of cyanide from like the movies, the spy movies, where they have the cyanide tablet that they bite into and they die. But it was actually originally made famous by detective stories, and it's really common. It smells of bitter almonds. So I don't know what's with everything having like a food smell, but I guess poison's got to be, right? Cyanide gas does the most harm, though. So gas is worse than like in a solid form or a liquid form. Swallowing it in a crystal form is toxic as well. A true story. In 1917, to end Rasputin's influence after the Russian royal family, a group of nobles gave Rasputin some Russian cakes that were laced with cyanide to kill him. But when that didn't work, they just shot him. But they tried to poison him first.
Let's do it this way. Oh, it doesn't work. Okay.
Yep, pretty much. So Rasputin, they tried to kill him with cyanide. Did not work. Grigory Rasputin. If you ever watch the Anastasia movie, he's actually a wizard.
Right.
And has a bat. That's a pet. I gave her a ha and a hi-ya, and I kicked her, sir. So, but I think isn't cyanide just like carbon and
Yeah, so I was just
nitrogen?
because I'm like, this is weird. What is cyanide? And yeah, it's a carbon triple bonded to a nitrogen.
Yeah.
And that group is known as a cyano group.
So there's that.
And
so
cyanide,
yes.
that's where you find cyanide is in apple seeds.
Right. So people might say like apple seeds are poisonous, they're toxic. And
Right.
some people like both Cindy and I were like, yeah, arsenic. Nope. Cyanide.
Yeah, I was like, wait, there's arsenic in there. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, right, that's cyanide. Just kidding.
But to be fair, you have to eat like a lot of apple seeds.
Yeah, and guess what? You know, I used to feed apples to my horses all the time, and you would have to eat a massive amounts of seeds for that to become poisonous for you.
Yes.
And for those seeds to probably break open too, because half the point of seeds is that you eat them and they get pooped out the other end.
That's valid. So that's valid.
They have to break it open first. So very interesting. So poisons are bad.
Yeah.
And one thing, I found this quote in my searchings, which I thought was really interesting. And we were talking about the dosage, right? So how, too much or too little, whatever. So Paracelsus or Paracelsus, not sure which.
Paracelsus, I believe.
Paracelsus. Okay, so it's a 16th century Swiss German philosopher. And this is a great quote. All things are poison, and nothing is without poison. Only the dose permits something not to be poisonous. So true. So true.
That goes very well with our podcast.
I thought it was a great kind of ending quote to do.
Because I feel like everything we've talked about, we're like, well, too much of it will kill you. So.
Right, exactly. Only the
dosage is what's important.
Anything can kill you. Yeah. I mean, oxygen can kill you, but you need it desperately to live. So it's all
water.
About
water can kill you.
So true.
Food can kill you. Toxic masculinity can kill you.
Way to go full circle there.
I'm sorry. I just had to one more time. Okay, I got it. I got it all out. All right. Sorry, guys. It's really close to the election. I'm feeling a lot of pressure right now.
A little bit.
A little stressed.
Right. So that's our Halloween episode of.
Yes. I mean, it wasn't about ghosts or goblins, but
no,
it was about
things that can turn you into a ghost or a goblin. Teratogenic.
Or a zombie.
Creates a monster, right? Zombie. Kills you, become a ghost. There you go.
Awesome. Cindy, Where can they find you if they want to learn more about you?
Well, you can find me at Pacific Mammal Research and pacmam.org. That's our website. And the Pac-Man podcast, which is on any place that you have your podcasts. You listen to your podcasts. And if you want to learn about marine mammals and have some fun with science. What about you? Where do they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Gracie Runs 50 by 50, where I will hopefully be pumping out some exciting stuff. I'll start promoting it hopefully in November. A little charity thing I'm hoping to get up and running. So
up and running.
Up and running. It's a running. Yeah, I did. I know. I didn't try to, but I did. Yeah, I'm hoping to do a little relay, a little kind of a run-a-thon kind of thing. Hopefully just kind of encouraging people to think outside themselves this holiday season and help other people.
We need some nice vibes going out into the world in this year of 2020.
Yeah, I'm actually focusing on November, trying to every day of November I'm going to try and thank someone or something out loud or on social media to just make my voice, make the positive be louder than the negative. Just because it's dark, man.
It is.
It's dark out.
2020 has been a year, so let's end it on a better note than we've had the rest of the year.
It's not going to be hard to do at this point.
That is true. The bar is low.
It's very low. But yeah, if you liked our podcast, you can leave a rating or review. You can subscribe. We also have an email that you can email us anything to if you have a request or a question. It's elementalfunpodcast@gmail.com. Is that right,
I
Miss
believe so.
Cindy?
So, yeah.
As you can tell, it's very popular. We're on it all the time.
A while.
But we have it. And yeah, so that's,
Yes,
I think,
elementalfunpodcast@gmail.com. Just checking. Just make sure. Yep.
It's been a long year.
It
If
has.
you don't know about us, we've each had a kid since this podcast has come
Started.
out, and so we're a little delayed. But thanks for sticking with us.
That's right.
Yeah.
We
So
appreciate all of you.
yes, we appreciate anyone who's willing to learn and willing to stretch their mind and
Have some fun.
Yeah. Which we got a shout out from my friends V. Hey V.
Thanks, me.
He's been kind of shouting the news of our podcast, which makes me feel good. He actually enjoys them, and it's not like my dad, who I asked to listen to it, and he's like, "Oh, you're still doing that?" I'm like, "Thanks, Dad."
Thanks. Sorry, my mom can't even find podcasts. It would be too difficult to explain to her how to do it. So.
But are we still on YouTube as well?
We are still on
not?
YouTube. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so you could find us on YouTube, or Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, and yeah.
Also,
so go ahead and subscribe and
yeah.
enjoy. We're almost to 30, so that's really exciting. So I know that doesn't sound like a lot for some people, but for two very busy moms, that's pretty much the greatest accomplishment. Who don't get paid for this? This is sheerly
just
out of
for fun.
Just
right.
It is elemental fun, not elemental paid. So
exactly.
So that's I think I'm pretty proud of us, Cindy.
I am too.
Yeah. We stuck with it.
We did. And we're still going.
Good. Yep.
We're still going with everything that's going on.
Yep. We'll think of what we're gonna go after next. We still have some really great elements we haven't even touched.
Yeah, well, I think we'll go into Mercury, because that's another.
I think so. I think that's a good thing we'll go into next. We'll hit Mercury. We were going to put that on this podcast, but Mercury's got a whole lot of. It can have its own podcast.
Yeah, and we're already an hour in with Arsenic and Thallium, so.
That's Cindy's way of saying, "Shush, Grace. Time to go to bed."
It's time to go. Let the people go.
Well, thank you so much for listening. Again, my name is Grace.
My name is Cindy.
And stay curious. Bye.
Bye. Testing. How do you sound?
You sound kind of like in and out. You sound a little spotty.
I'm spotty?
No, not your face. Not your face.
Oh, okay.
But your voice.
My voice is spotty. Is it still spotty?
No, it's not spotty.
Okay. Well, let's hear it. Let's see how it is. Stop.
Bloop, bloop.